Here's the Deal is brought to you by VEBS, Veteran Essential Business Services. We are your business air support. We have your six. You served your country faithfully. Now it's time to blaze your own path. Here's the Deal is a show for veterans, by veterans, to discuss real-world issues on how to start and run your own business. It's a cross between Dave Ramsey, Maria Bartiromo, and Joe Rogan. This is not academia. It's the truth. Here's the deal. Here's the Deal is proud to present our very first sponsor. It's B&G Chicago Catering. If you're in the mood for fresh, authentic Chicago-style favorites, check out B&G Chicago Catering. Founded by two Marine vets, and no, there's no crayon flavors involved here. B&G Chicago Catering is professional mobile food cart service, well-suited for large crowds and intimate gatherings. Currently serving the Metro Phoenix and Metro Tucson areas. B&G Chicago Catering will drive up to your next event, business storefront, or private party. Chicago classics like Chicago dogs, my personal favorite is the Italian beef, bratwurst, Polish sausage. They got tamales and more. All their food is made to order, hot and fresh, using only Vienna products. B&G Chicago Catering comes fully equipped and takes care of all the cleanup. So if you're looking for a way to give back to your employees and all the efforts they've been putting forth this year, need a last-minute option for a small, intimate birthday party, need to spotlight your storefront reopening, which hopefully they all get there soon, check out B&G Chicago Catering. You can find them at www.bgchicagocatering.com. You can follow on Instagram at BG Chicago Catering 520. Give them a call at 520-262-7596. Hey everybody, how's it going? This is your host, Chris Flowers of Here's the Deal. Today we're going to be doing an interview with retired Lieutenant Colonel Kathy Lowry Gallowitz. And we're actually going to get her on the phone right here. Just want to kind of prep that she's pioneering something. Her company is called Vanguard Veteran, and she's pioneering this veteran champion. So I'm going to get her on the phone here and get to letting her speak with what she does. Hi, Kathy.
Yeah, how we doing?
Hey, how you doing? This is Chris Flowers. We're live on Here's the Deal. So just wanted to, I was giving everybody a little summary that you're a 29-year Air Force vet, retired Lieutenant Colonel, and that you are the CEO of the Vanguard Veteran, but and talking about veteran champion, of course, but who better to do that than you? So I just wanted to preface a little bit too that in her career, that Colonel Gallowitz, not only is she in nursing, she's in public affairs. So her this is gonna be a little more pressure on me because I'm not like I'm not a professional interview person. Okay. So
hey, can you hear me okay, Chris?
Oh, I can hear you perfect. Can you hear me?
We're already live. Is that it?
We are live. This is what's happening. So can you hear me?
Yes, we're good. So much.
Okay. Oh yeah, no, not a problem at all. So like I said, yeah. So the pressure's gonna be more on me because, like I said, I'm not nearly as polished of a interviewer as probably you are. So, but
hey, listen. I listened to a couple of your podcasts, and you're doing great. I love your passion, your spirit, your inspiration, your motivation that you're providing people. So thanks for inviting me to participate and be a part of all this. I'm grateful.
Oh no, absolutely. That's when I was talking to you, like I said, that got me even kind of more fired up because just the different things that you're doing, just how you were the director in Ohio of a statewide outreach program equipping civilians to become veteran champions. So if you want, let's just kind of introduce yourself and maybe go into that movie. And then of course you even wrote a book, which is amazing. So I'll let Colonel Gallowitz do her thing and tell you more about herself.
All right, my friend. First of all, please call me Kathy through this, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. I appreciate your professionalism, but that's really the right thing to do. So, Cliff Note version about my life is, I think, context for this interview is I grew up as a military dependent supporting my father's Navy career,
Mm-hmm.
traveled around the world, moved in the middle of my junior year in high school from a class of 400 to a class of 30
Wow.
on a base in the middle of the North Atlantic. So I graduated from high school in Iceland,
Wow.
and and it was a great experience, but it was also a very transformative experience, right? Then I went to college in Munich, Germany for a year and a half, went to 3 different undergraduates. I mean, you know the drill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Military brats, people who serve active duty. I lived in about 20 different communities before the age of 35. Joined the Air Force as my first choice career. Nursing was my Air Force nursing was my first choice career.
Mm-hmm.
Dad paid for nursing school. I really fundamentally grew up with a profound appreciation for my country, really wanted to serve in the military. I loved the aspect of, defending freedom, the focus of the military on leadership, education, physical fitness, the travel, the awesome, diverse people you meet, and just the opportunity to serve in a lot of different ways and to learn a lot. So, growing up as a military kid and then serving a full 29-year career, active duty, guard, and reserve. When I retired, I wanted to continue the work we had started with the Ohio National Guard to equip civilians to become veteran champions. This calling, this is really my life's calling, because I've really served in every capacity, except honestly, having been an enlisted person. Okay, I haven't done that, and I also have not been to combat. Okay, but I've been a military dependent, a military wife, a military mom, a military officer. And frankly, I've also been a business person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of have a lot of different lenses from which I could do this work and help others succeed. How's that for an introduction? Does that do it justice?
Yeah, I think that pretty much you can't get introduced any better than that. So, explain to us about Vanguard Veteran and your approach on becoming a veteran champion, because I like that whole phrase. So, just go ahead and explain. You've been doing this for like what, 3 years now? You're running your own company doing this. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm in about my 4th year,
Mm-hmm.
but it was really an extension of almost, gosh, over a decade worth of doing outreach for the Ohio National Guard. Because in response to 9/11, we started a statewide outreach program to educate and engage civilians in support of troops and their families, because the Guard was being mobilized in a way like never before in our nation's history.
Of course.
And so when I retired, I really felt compelled to continue that good work. And so I've had primarily 3 lines of effort. First and foremost, leadership development training for veterans and civilians. Secondarily, to help employers understand how to acquire and keep veteran talent in ways that also strengthens their workforce, because of the highly transferable skills that veterans bring to the workforce and the research that shows how much more productive and the cost savings that can be generated by hiring that incredible talent. And then third, I'm very passionate about helping faith community leaders develop military ministries within their place of worship. These are practical grassroots support hubs, if you will, not developing counselors or therapists, but ways to harness the hospitality, the connection, and the faith components to help service members, veterans, and their families really fully readjust, connect, and, if you will, become whole again in ways that everyday citizens can support. So I call a veteran champion someone who creates mutually beneficial activities and services that improve quality of life, workforce, and community. I can talk forever, but you want to ask me another question, or should I keep going forward here?
Well, no, like I said, you're just doing a great job. I let the talent speak for itself. So like I said, nobody can explain what you do better than you. So that's why I'm not gonna, cut you off and do a bunch of different things. I'm like, nobody can explain what you do any better than you can. So no, you and I had talked about this a little bit yesterday when we were talking, like, when we go into the military, they teach us how to do our jobs and things like that. But then when we get out of the military, they don't teach us how to become civilians again. So
yes,
I know that was one thing that you hit on yesterday that I definitely wanted to approach for sure.
So thank you, because that was really the next thing I wanted to speak about. And the why I'm so passionate about this work is twofold. Number one, research tells us that 55% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans feel disconnected from mainstream America. That 40% of these same Iraq and Afghanistan veterans feel like they have a hard time regaining a sense of purpose or a reconnection with their spirituality. And of course, we know about the tragic numbers about veteran suicide. You and I are both in Arizona. I think the suicide rate in Arizona is the 6th highest in the nation. And, the numbers are probably a little bit worse here during COVID. They were like about 22. I also read something about maybe them decreasing down to maybe 17 or 18 pre-COVID. But suicide is a rampant public health problem.
Absolutely.
Not only for our veterans, but for our citizens as well. So, there's the nature of stressors from military service and clearly from combat that our citizens can do so much more about. There's just so many needs out there that that citizens can influence. And the big omission that we have, I believe, from our military service as well as from our society is really training military people how to come all the way home. What do we spend a year or more, with boot camp and technical training and upgrade training? I mean, we're trained
mm-hmm.
to do our military job, and of course have really great training to go to war. But we fall pretty short as a nation to really help our military veterans understand the distinctions of mindset, of influence versus authority, of the looseness, if you will, in civilian life as compared to the hierarchy and the structure in military life. I mean, there's so many components that it's really discouraging to me that we as a nation don't do a better job of it, because I contend, Chris, that no matter how much money we have, and we're broke as a nation, right? We all kinds of deficits. COVID didn't help at all. We're even worse shape. But no matter how much money we have, I think it's unreasonable or unrealistic. That's a good word, to expect the DoD and or the VA to be responsible for all this.
Mm-hmm.
As a master's prepared nurse myself, I think the VA has a big enough job to serve the complex physical and emotional health care needs of our veterans. And frankly, I think they're doing a pretty darn good job. They're doing pretty well. Overall, they have a better emphasis on customer service. There's more transparency. I mean, there's some bad stories, but I think there's also a lot of emerging really effective reforms happening. So the VA needs to focus on healthcare, and I think the DoD should really focus on defense, using the taxpayers' money wisely, having effective national security strategies, and doing that job really well. So 100%. Where is the third part of this triangle, if you will, my friend? That triangle of, okay, if less than 1% of our nation serves, okay, how are we going to help those special Americans, right? Only 7 out of 10 of us are even eligible to serve. No,
mm-hmm.
3 out of 10 of us. I got that wrong. 3 out of 10 of us are eligible to serve, right? So there's a very small pocket of eligibility and a very small pocket of people who actually follow through and do that. So in order to maintain this fighting force that we're going to need to maintain for years and years and years to come, we owe it to those very special Americans in my eyes, who sacrifice, and their families sacrifice,
Of course.
to help them develop personal networks when they get home, and help them transition effectively so that they're not isolated, they're not hurting, and they get a leg up. They get, not a handout, but a leg up, like, just because of sensitivity and awareness of neighbors, of employers, of faith communities, all these citizens who benefit from our sacrifice. So I'm pretty passionate about it, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, a little bit. I think one of the key things, and this is just me talking here, there's one key word out there: stigma. These civilians are uneducated. They think, oh, we all have PTSD. We're all broken. We're all dysfunctional. We're all like, I think so. That's one stereotype, one stigma that needs to be rectified. But I think the other thing too, and I've had conversations with this with some of my buddies, and Adam Bigelow over the PTSD Foundation, is that we got to get rid of the stigma that seeking mental help is a bad thing, because it's like, especially us being military, like, well, we don't want to need ask for help because it seems like it's like weakness, and then of course, God forbid, you ask for mental health, it's like, okay, well, then they're going to put you on a no-fly risk. You can't buy a gun. You're going to get flagged. So everybody's like, screw that. I'm not going through that bullshit. So I think those are the two things. I mean, just one word pretty much sums that up. It's just called stigma. We got to spell this out.
Demystify. Agreed. So a big part of what I offer is military cultural sensitivity training to employers or faith communities. That's where I focus my efforts, so that both of those groups understand that help seeking is not our primary nature, that we're very stoic. Mm-hmm. And that, frankly, I think veterans also develop trust more slowly than with people who are non-veterans. Okay, I think those. You agree with that? I think that's pretty 100%, fair, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Right on. It is so much easier for you and I to develop an immediate bond, because we kind of talk the same language, we have the same mindset, we can kind of expect the same things from each other. But it's really different, when you step out and you interface with people who don't have that same background. So I think helping our citizens understand the distinctions of military culture and how those make us good community servants and good employees, and also to demystify the PTSD idea, okay? And the VA tells us that upwards of about 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans have PTSD. Oh, by the way, all this conversation does not want to take away from all the great things that our veterans of previous conflicts have done for us. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, how our Vietnam veterans were so
had it 1,000 times worse. When you're getting spit on at the airport, being called baby killer, like my dad when he came home, he couldn't even come home in uniform, and they told him to change the civilian clothes. And
so thank God those of us who are alive today served in this current conflict, and America loves its warriors even if they don't support the war, right? Thank God for that, right? Those poor Vietnam veterans, we owe them a huge debt of gratitude.
Absolutely.
So those who currently serving, about 20% have PTSD, but as I understand it, upwards about 30% of Vietnam veterans may have had PTSD at some time in their life. And so there are some struggles that service members have, but holy cow, okay, Master's Prepared Nurse here, I've done some specialized training. Did you know that about 2/3 of our society has experienced some kind of trauma, right? So this is part of the demystifying process, because you are more likely to meet a civilian who has PTSD because of a divorce, a car accident.
I had PTSD before I joined the military and didn't know what it was.
Brother.
I just called it life back then.
Well, okay, exactly. And so unfortunately, I think the stigmas are perpetuated by, just horrific things that happen in the media, and, people being afraid, and, just not thinking things through. But, every veteran has an opportunity to try to destigmatize some of these things by getting involved in their community, by giving speeches about their stories, by, finding the veterans who need help, and, really helping them connect to their community, and, ushering them in, if you will. And talking about that PTSD, isn't, that everybody's not broken. So squashing that narrative that all veterans are broken
Exactly.
is something that each of us can do something about. Every single veteran can, help with that. If not only by, reaching out to the citizens in your community and getting to know them, and letting them get to know you. I mean, it's not easy, but that's something that we can do to help ourselves.
Well, I think again, you kind of touched on it a little bit, and this is the one thing I try to inspire veterans. Like, we have so much to offer the civilian population. You know what I mean? Even though even if though they don't understand. I know a lot of people, a lot of businesses have a lot of lip service, like, oh yeah, we want to hire veterans because they see the benefit of they're getting a tax break somehow, some way, or something like that. But then also they're like, okay, yeah, these guys never call in sick. They never.
Yeah.
You can put them in horrific conditions. They're like, okay, it's Tuesday, great, let's go to work. They don't. We don't. We're gonna drive on through anything, whatever. So they like the benefits of all that. But for them to give back to us, to show us, hey, we care about you, the person. Which I think this is kind of the direction that you're going. It's like, hey, these are people.
Yes.
These are not assets. These are not.
And oh, by the way, if you have anybody in your workforce that is struggling, you have an EAP, an employee assistance program, where anybody can go without discrimination, without repercussion, to help them cope with whatever they're going through. And a military person is no different. I mean, they have the complications of additional stressors, but everybody practically needs support throughout their lifetime, and our veterans really deserve your extra special consideration. But let's make no mistake about that. I think the business case for hiring veterans is pretty well understood amongst America's employers. I really do, because they're being hired in record numbers. As you probably know, Chris, pre-COVID, the unemployment rate for veterans was like 3.1 across the nation. And it was like the lowest it'd been in decades. And as I've been watching the unemployment numbers through COVID, veterans are consistently higher. The unemployment rate for veterans is consistently lower than for non-veterans. So I think employers really, understand the value of hiring veterans. But the research shows, the Society of Human Resource Management shows, that about 70% of our employers do not understand how to reach out to them, how to recruit them. So we have a long way to go.
Is that because
good news?
We're about to say, is that because we want to show people that need a safe space? Like, what are you complaining about now?
Now, say that again.
I said that because we probably want to choke people. Like, I need a safe space. Like, really?
Yeah. Well, people's stress tolerance is certainly very different militarily versus non-militarily. But let's talk about this for a second. We need veterans who are in the corporate world, or in the small business world, or in the business world at all, to lead from where they are. And that could be, okay, let's look around our workplace and find out who the other veterans are. You probably know if you're a small to medium-sized business. If you're a larger business, it may be more difficult to find them, because oftentimes veterans are potentially reluctant to self-identify. But if you self-identify within your workplace, and you organize and you get to know the other veterans in your workplace, you can make a difference for your employer by helping coaching them to know how to find veterans, to know how to interview them, how to onboard them, and then through some sort of committee, veteran employee resource group, council, or whatever you want to call it, to get the veteran voice within the workplace heard better, so that the employer can advance.
Mm-hmm.
It really takes looking at it from all different aspects. And I'd like to encourage the veteran audience, the veteran listeners, to do what you can from your position through a slow, deliberate, patient approach, building relationships to help our citizenry understand the great things that you do bring to the workforce, and helping them do more better. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And then what I try to do as a lender, as a business lender myself, and with the show, is when I'm trying to encourage veterans, like, you know what? Maybe you just don't want to fit in, or maybe you just don't fit in with the civilian workforce, and that's fine too. I struggle with that sometimes myself, to where it's like, okay, maybe you should just start your own business. Maybe, you know what? Maybe let you run the ship the way you want to run the ship. Because like I say, especially, you've been a senior NCO, or you've been an officer, or things like that, and you're reporting to some 20-year-old kid who doesn't barely know how to tie his own shoes.
Yeah.
You're like, what? You know what I'm saying? So, or, we're dealing with some corporate tie guy, like I say, who never saw a hard day in his life. And, I have a hard time dealing with that sometimes. So, like, and I know a lot of other veterans are out there too. So I try to encourage them, and I try to work with them to obtain, business lending, so that way they could start their own businesses, and that way. And then who are they going to usually hire? Veterans, because because they know the work ethic. They know it's like, hey, if I give you an objective, you're gonna get it done, kind of thing. So
right on.
So that's the thing that I'm trying to do from my perspective, and taking the experiences that I've had in this, and try to impart this. Like, hey, okay, you were 11 Bravo in the Army. Okay, you were an infantry guy. That doesn't mean you got to be a cop. I mean, not to say nothing wrong with being a cop, but you don't have to just do that. You can be whatever you want to be. You got your GI Bill, go to school, get some training, and go do your own thing.
Yep.
Don't be afraid
I loved
of
your
that.
I loved your podcast about the Air Force pilot who started sports clips.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome because we have such highly transferable skills, and we can do really whatever we want. The other thing, it's just a different mindset. Although we have the kind of the take charge, I can get her done, kind of perseverance, and that's the hard work ethic, that entrepreneurship that entrepreneurs really need. And yet we oftentimes don't have, and that's where you come in, we don't have the financial resources, the financial backing, maybe even, the patience, or the because you can't just order a civilian around, right? You have to build that relationship through influence and trust and, teamwork and that sort of thing. But that stuff will come if you invest in your own personal growth, and you learn how to transition to speak civilian, if you will, as opposed to speaking military, right?
Well, that's why you just keep hiring veterans, and you just all speak the same language.
But most of society's not veterans.
No,
right?
I know. I'm just
right?
joking.
I know, but so you have you heard of Bunker Labs, Chris? Do you know of Bunker Labs?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Yep.
And so that's a resource for our veterans. And the other thing,
I'm going to get Ben on the show too, so yeah.
Who's Ben?
He's one of the directors here in Phoenix.
Oh, I'd love to meet him. Please introduce me if you would. That'd be great. Yeah, because I think that's a great resource for our emerging entrepreneur veterans. And the other thing is being a franchise owner. What a great opportunity for a veteran, really of any age and stage, to do that, because you pretty much, and I don't want to oversimplify, but you pretty much have a cookbook of how to start a business. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you have support. The scarier things are how do you get the financial backing, and that's where you come in. But there's just so many great things that veterans can do to support their family and continue to serve. And I was this is my second business, and this is a sort of a fun little story. Having been involved in the military my whole life, right? my dad was pretty strict. I was almost seen and not heard as a kid, and I would say yes sir to my dad when I get in trouble. Not every day, but and then I joined the military, and then my first husband and I started a healthcare practice,
Wow.
and it was revolutionary to me to be the primary decision maker. I mean, my husband was a surgeon. He did all the surgery, and then I was involved in every other aspect of setting up this business.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great experience, but that's where my paradigm seemed to shift, because I had come from okay, what's my role in the team? Who do I report to sort of mindset, to when I became a business owner, OMG, here was my chance to create the kind of work culture where everybody felt like they had everybody was supported. I mean, it was just so exciting to develop the policies and procedures, and to, really, use my leadership and influence skills inside the practice, inside the business, to help it be successful. But then from there, go outside the business and support the community, because you're making a huge difference when you create good jobs with a great culture, right? You treat your employees well, you pay them well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then once you have that business, it also appeals to veterans too, because you can serve your community through your business, right? I mean, you and I met through the Glendale Chamber of Commerce, because that's a great way to be involved in the community and serve veterans through the Military Veterans Affairs Committee. We in our practice, we would donate monies to different teams, and I became very, very involved and was a leader in the local Chamber of Commerce. And it's a great thing to serve others by creating jobs with a good work culture, and to be involved as much as you can be and want to be in making your community better. So
Yeah.
I think those are amazing benefits of owning a business, because you really can sort of design your future, serve your employees, and serve your community all at once. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
It's really fun.
We could talk about this subject all day, but I did want to start touching on the Military Family Coalition. You're mobilizing faith in the community. I wanted to touch on that a little bit too, getting into how you're doing that.
Okay, so I've been talking with the Arizona Military Families Coalition and hoping that I can join their team a little bit more actively. But what I can talk about right now is how and why faith communities are so important to helping, we'll just say veterans. And when I mean veterans, I mean service members who are serving and their families. Okay, but just for ease, I'll just use the word veteran. Mm-hmm. I mentioned earlier that 40% of veterans have difficulty post-military service reconnecting with their spirituality or finding purpose in their life. Because, when you take off that uniform, man, your identity changes, right?
Yep.
Because your identity is so wrapped up in the military, and then you come out into this, if you will, loosey-goosey civilian life,
mm-hmm.
and and that identity is pretty much gone. So, there's things like loss and grief, and feeling isolated, and not knowing how to lean on your spirituality, because for many people who've been to war, they experience survivor's guilt, or they're angry at God. They lose faith in God because what they've experienced or what they've had to do because of their military experience. And so the faith community is in the business of welcoming people, being hospitable, understanding the impact of spirituality on your healing and recovery. They just don't, more often than not, really understand, some of the stoicism and the lack of help-seeking behaviors. And I think sometimes it's hard for our veterans to connect with civilian faith communities, because again, there's just different mindsets. And oh, by the way, the formal leaders, the formal clergies, the priests, the rabbis, the ministers, the pastors, they're so doggone busy, and they have, limited resources, that they really need a volunteer, Chris, a volunteer like you and me, who loves veterans, to go into that place of worship and say, hey, let's come together. I can't fix your problems, but I can love you. I mean, you're not going to say it like that, but that's in essence what it's about, right? And so that's really what it's all about, is, extending a hand of friendship, bringing people together, listening, okay, inquiring, reaching out, and sharing resources, either veteran community resources or books or videos, or just connecting people who are living similar life experiences.
Right.
I'm doing that here in my local faith community. I haven't lived their experiences. I may have some theoretical understanding, but not real world understanding. So why not, seek out people who do have that, connect them, and just, celebrate our military service, celebrate what we can when we can. And then if you can do, practical real world things like prayer, or, offering a meal, or, just listening to someone's struggles. I mean, these things are just basic human things. And it just takes someone like you and me to step out and say, yeah, I want to bring people together. And then you have all the experts around you who can come in and, offer the more concrete interventions, if you will. But, at the beginning of the day, we all want to be around people who care about us and who are willing to connect and support us. So it's really not rocket science, but someone has to step out in faith and invite people to come together to share whatever that sharing might look like, depending on the needs of the people.
I think it's really important. I was about to say, I think it's really important for us. I mean, like I said, I know, I'm a follower of Christ myself, and I know it was hard for me to, work with some civilians, like I said, in the church and things like that too. But at the same time, I think it's important for me, for when I'm talking to different veterans, like, hey, you know what? I can relate to what you're talking about, but you know what? Jesus still loves you. Jesus still loves me. Kind of,
yes.
But I speak that language. Where, like, so you got, the PK, the preacher's kid, who, like I said, never, saw a bad day in his life, or I mean, can't really relate. But so I think it's important for people that have a military background that, got through it, that we need to reach out and say, hey, this is what God has done in my life since I came home. So I can't speak for everybody, and I wasn't deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan, because, like I said, I was in Desert Storm like a long time ago. So, it's, but at the same time, it's like, hey, I speak your language. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we're not, and you're not getting judged and things like that. And God does not do that, but oh yeah, God can't forgive me because, it's like, yeah, actually he can. So, and here's why.
Yes, and I am certainly a Christian. I will be very open and say, I'm a kind of a babe in the woods when it comes to Christianity, but I love God, and I know God is the source of our hope. And yet, here I am, a mere mortal, if you will, who can physically show veterans, their spouses, their kids, their grandparents, their mothers, that, I care about what you've experienced because of military service. Let's come together and share that with one another. Storytelling is so important. Just sharing your story helps you in your own healing process. And forgiveness. There's moral injury, there's soul injury. I'm specially trained in soul injury. There's a nonprofit called Opus Peace, and this group who started this Opus Peace nonprofit originated from the Tampa VA, where hospice nurses helped 10,000 veterans at their end of life. A specific advanced practice nurse named Deborah Grassman, she and her team identified symptoms, groupings of symptoms that weren't really documented in the DSM, the diagnostic manual. And so they identified them as soul injuries, which is different from moral injuries, but a soul injury stems from unmourned loss, unforgiven guilt, and shame.
Mm-hmm.
And so they took these lessons from these 10,000 dying veterans to create ceremonies, to create workshops. And I offer a workshop called the Fallen Comrades Ceremony that was begun by Deborah Grassman to create a safe sanctuary where veterans and their families come together to share their burdens from military service, their burdens from combat, and citizens are invited to come experience this and share in those burdens symbolically. It's
That's
a
cool.
very moving ceremony, and we plan on hosting one. Arizona Hospice and I are going to host one once the COVID restrictions are kind of lifted. So,
cool.
The shame and the grief, and the how can God love me because of what I've done? All those things are very real, and we need an understanding, empathetic ear within our faith community to help people, work through that.
100%. And also, we need to talk about, you are an author.
Oh,
you wrote a book called Beyond the Thank You for Your Service, the Veteran Champion Handbook, Service for Civilians. So talk to us about that.
Okay. Beyond Thank You for Your Service, the Veteran Champion Handbook for Civilians can be found on Amazon. My veterans, brothers and sisters, I hope you will get it. I hope you will read it. I hope you will reach out to me and let me know what you think about it. Most importantly, I hope you will share it with any civilian in your life that you would like to cultivate into becoming a veteran champion. What I did through the book, Chris, was give an overview of kind of my life story about, because I understood that everything about me had been shaped by military service, because I've had the military uniform on, essentially my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I recognized when I finally sat down roots in Ohio, because I wanted my sons to have roots, I realized that my lens, my life, my lens through which I saw things, my mindset, my experiences were different from the civilians I met around me in this sort of small town in rural Ohio. And so that was my first revelation. And then through the outreach office, I saw firsthand how much Americans want to support service members and veterans, but they just don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
They are uncomfortable, if not nervous, or just uneducated. And so that's what we did, was we educated the civilians through the outreach office and engaged them through their center of influence. Okay. So we reached out to doctors, lawyers, employers, educators, leaders of diverse communities, and clergy. And through each of those groups, we, through building coalitions, identified specific ways that those groups could serve the veterans. And then through Vanguard Veteran, I have also helped coach as a consultant and trainer some of those groups, primarily employers and faith communities, to be able to do more. So the book is chock full of practical, easy things that a citizen from any walk of society can do to support veterans. Let me give you a quick fun example.
Please.
So I was at a conference, and I introduced myself to one of the vendors. Okay, turns out that this particular vendor, who was a small business owner, he was the chief financial officer, and what he did was offer CFO experiences to small businesses, to make sure their bookkeeping is tight and there's saving money and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Well, after getting to know this guy, turns out he's a military dependent. Okay. His dad's in the military. He never served. So he's a veteran champion. He never served. So he's a veteran champion. I said to him, I said, hey, Anthony, what are you doing to support veterans? And he basically scratched his head and said, well, I don't know. I never thought about it. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I just came out and asked him, I said, hey, would you consider offering a year of complimentary CFO service to a veteran-owned business?
Cool.
And you know what he said? You bet I
Absolutely.
would. You
Yep.
bet I would.
Uh-huh.
But if I hadn't been standing there with that idea in my head and specifically asked him to contribute, this may have never occurred to him.
Right.
Again,
Right.
this isn't rocket science, okay? But we need someone in our society that's advocating for our veterans every day, so that there's a fluent part of people's conversation, so that so he used his expertise, his center of influence, to improve the quality of life of this veteran-owned business, and in some ways, I think, improve clearly the workforce of this veteran-owned business
Yeah.
and his ability to contribute in the community. So that's a very simple example, but the book has all kinds of different, everything from a Supreme Court justice to the mayor of Columbus, to small, medium, large employers, how they're doing it. A legislator friend of mine and I are working on creating legislation in Ohio that would potentially attract and retain more veteran talent for the workforce there, and kind of his thinking on how best to do that. So I really encourage people to go out and take a look at it, and take whatever nuggets make sense to you, and teach your community members about how to do some of these things. It's not hard. People just forget. They're just not thinking in these terms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nope, I understand.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you think we missed that you need to cover?
I think the big thing I want to emphasize again is that every veteran that's listening here today can help cultivate veteran champions. First, identifying and listening those veterans that are coming back to your local communities, and really helping them develop a network, because primarily the active duty people, right? They go away, they come home, they don't know people,
Right.
and they don't even sometimes know what questions to ask. But knowing you, and knowing what kind of you, Chris, in particular, knowing your open-armed approach and what you could offer, I mean, that's a great resource. So finding them, supporting them, and connecting them to a network. I encourage each of the veterans listening to go out and tell your story to the community. Every Kiwanis, Rotary, all these civic organizations, they want speakers, and do a good job, create a great understanding of what it's like to be in the military, and what you've learned, and how maybe they could help you transition home. If you're a member of a chamber of commerce, advance the value of veteran talent to the businesses. Encourage businesses to hire veterans. And then if you're inside a workplace, organize, get to know your veterans, offer your support to your employers to see how you can help them hire and retain more veteran talent. If you know an attorney, encourage them to offer pro bono support. If you know a public school teacher, are they identifying and supporting their military kids? If you're involved in a military campus, is there a veteran student organization, a veteran center? If you know a legislator, how are they working to promote and advance legislation that will make their state, or Congress, make legislation that's pro-military? I think another key thing is to really take charge of your own personal transition.
Mm-hmm.
Learn as much as you can. Read books. There's a great book out called Mission Transition by Matt Lewis, Louis. Read that. Network. Join your local, Red, White, and Blue, Mission Continues, all those other organizations that, help you, maintain your camaraderie and get connected to your community. And then, please, please, please go back to your faith community, no matter where it is, no matter how big it is, and ask your leaders, hey, what are we doing to support military families?
Mm-hmm.
Do we even know? Do we even know who our military members are? Okay. Mm-hmm. What could we do to do more? And then fundamentally, please reach out to me if I can offer you support in knowing how to approach that, through your faith community, or more ideas about how maybe to talk to your employer, But that's kind of a list of things that I wanted to share to encourage any of your veteran listeners to get involved, and being that great role model out in the community that shows that our veterans are not broken, that shows that our veterans are leaders, that shows that we make a big difference in our community, and just educating everybody around us about how military service strengthens our skill sets and attributes that we bring home with us,
Mm-hmm.
that will help others.
Absolutely. And then now I know we're not going to speak about this right now because you were just chosen for it. We're going to have you back on for a different segment. You've been selected by the governor to be part of his veteran liaison or something to that effect. I don't know what the
Yep.
terminology, the name of it is.
It's called the Governor's Veterans Service Advisory Commission.
Okay.
So I'm really honored as a newcomer to Arizona to be able to participate in that. I have not attended my first meeting yet, but it is really an honor to support him in that way. And my goal is to be as knowledgeable as I can be about what's going on in Arizona for veterans, and potentially be aware of gaps, and help potentially fill those gaps. I'm hoping to work closely with the Arizona Coalition of Military Families. I'm also very proud to be a part of the Southwest Veteran Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. So I just feel like I've been welcomed to Arizona with open arms and a big hug, to be honest with you.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, it's pretty cool. I'm thrilled, really. I'm so proud of everything that's going on here in Arizona for our veterans. We should really feel grateful for what the citizenry here is already doing for us. It's significant.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But we'll have you back on once you get more involved in that, and then you can speak about that to whatever extent you're allowed to speak about it with, and things like that. So
that'd be great. I would love it.
All right. So, like I said, just wanted to thank you for taking the time to come on the air with us, and tell us about your story and what it is that you're doing and everything like that. Appreciate your expertise and your passion for everything that you're doing, and then you and I are going to work together on a couple other projects, and keep moving forward there. So just wanted to kind of go ahead.
Well, I want to thank you for what you're doing. Inspiring veterans is a very noble and important mission. Keep on after it, and I hope this is the beginning of a strong friendship between us.
Absolutely.
And absolutely. And so anybody who's listening, my website is vanguardveteran.com. I am Lieutenant Colonel Kathy Lowry Gallowitz on LinkedIn, or my Facebook page is Vanguard Veteran. Love to hear from you, and I challenge and hope to inspire each of you listening to go out there and be that role model and start cultivating veteran champions. It takes all of us to really do this and move and create this veteran champion movement.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Oh, no, not a problem at all. Thank you so much for your time. And like I said, we'll definitely talk again very, very soon.
Look forward to it.
All right.
Thanks, Chris, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Have a great weekend. We'll speak again soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
So that was Lieutenant Colonel Kathy Gallowitz. She was just awesome. Like I said, her energy and everything like that, and her passion and stuff like that. I was like, okay, I gotta have her on. Plus, being a part of this governor's thing or whatever, that's pretty cool. Getting selected for that, so that was something. Like I said, we'll speak about that later. Personally, like I said, as I end every show, like I said, because I am a person of faith, like I said, I just want to thank Jesus Christ for allowing me to do this podcast and being able to reach out to my veteran brothers and sisters out there, and hopefully, like she was saying, hopefully I'm trying to inspire some people to move on and move forward. And then of course I have to thank my family for supporting me in this as well. My wife, my kids are the backbone of everything that I do. Our sponsor, B&G Chicago Catering, Got a couple Marines that are my battle buddies here, so they're helping me out. Of course, my brother Mario from Fallen 360. Always, like I said, listen to his podcast as well. And like I said, we're starting a new year. We're going to start strong. Like I said, we are just going to drive on. All right. Whoop. We're out.